Brilliant. It's thank you so much for meeting with me.
All right.
Perfect.
Okay, great. How are you? Are you in London?
I'm in a little city called Portsmouth in the UK.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, quite far away.
I'm jealous.
It's not that
I'm
great
desperately,
here.
you know, I'm like living in my mind. I'm someone who just wants to live in you know, like London or something. So I'm hoping one day to either get to make movies over there or
come down. It's busy. There's always stuff going on. It's great.
Yeah, yeah.
But thank you so much for letting me watch your film.
Thank you for watching it.
It's kind of this area of like short film or art house films is something really new to me.
Mm-hmm.
So this has been a really cool experience to kind of get to know how it's done, what sort of films are being made, and sort of the lengths that people go. I mean, this was 5 years in making. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been a lot of hard work from everyone involved.
It was. I mean, it wasn't. You know, I'm always saying that it's like no one presented a bill at the beginning. It was like, here's what this is going to cost you. These many years of your lives, and you know, all of these things, and you know, we just started, and it just took that long. You know, it maybe would have taken less if we had more, but I think it also took about as long as it needed for us to figure it all out. Which is a long part of the process.
That's brilliant. Because you came from a background of visual effects.
In part, yes. I mean, the background was sort of it was the foreground of this movie. I had worked. You know, I didn't go to film school, so I had dropped out of college after studying a bit of English and a bit of theater, and was like, I want to go make movies. So the necessary requirement for that are other people that make movies. So I had met David Ross, who's the cinematographer of this movie and the producer. And so we had made something together that I was sending around to people who were successfully making movies. And I was like 20 at the time. Sorry, I have a little dog here. I'm gonna try to he sits behind me. This is like his normal spot. So I just found anyone I could that was making movies for small amounts of money, or I mean, to me they were massive amounts of money, but smaller amounts of money in a traditional sense, who seemed to have an independent spirit, you know. And I was like, well, I'll do anything you guys have. And that's, you know, on the list of things that they needed help with, normally visual effects was on that list. And I knew that was something that if I was ever going to make my films, which I was writing at the time, it would require visual effects. Yeah. So it was like, clearly this has to get figured out. So that's sort of how I figured it out, or tried to begin to figure it out, which is just watching a bunch of tutorials and learning however I could, and having a stack of hard drives of other people's footage. I was lucky enough that people, you know, let me do those things, and we're like, well, let's see if we can go figure it out. So that was, you know, about also like 4 or 5 years. And then I felt I knew enough to maybe go try to make this movie, and I had a little window of opportunity, and so that's what we did. But you know, the from where I started that movie to where what was required to finish it is like 5 years of work, basically. You know?
The fact you were able to build that up from the ground up, you know, with very little experience, but also because I don't know much about visual effects, but I love the idea of being able to make things that you can't physically do. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it was, the other thing is, you know, because it wasn't like we were hiring a company, like a traditional film, which I'm now aware of because I sometimes am on the opposite side of it, is like, we have these 3 scenes and this is what we need in them. And we're going to go talk to a company to see if you can do them. That's like not how we made the movie. We just were like, we're going to start filming the movie, and the parts in the movie that we have, we'll film, and the parts that we don't have, we'll figure out how to put there. Which was like a weird, strange process. And also, if someone was like bidding this out and keeping track of the amount of money that we would spend, if someone else was doing it, they'd be like, "Today you just added $200,000 because you had, a new idea," and we just didn't have anyone to account to except our own lives. Yeah, so there's a bunch of visual effects in the movie, which is what sort of makes it strange.
Yeah.
The visual effects in the movie are not used to fill out something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So it's not like everything's real and the robot's not. It's like the grass is fake, which is a strange way to use visual effects. And that's, that is exciting to me, like as a filmmaker. And it's fun to me that I like the idea of visual effects being used not as a tool or a purported like a easy way out, which I think it rarely is, but it's often given that tag. But
I had done some reading beforehand, and I had read that most of it was filmed in a warehouse. And when I heard that it was the visuals were quite a big part of that film, I was like, right, can I spot what wasn't, what was visual effects and what was real? And I was looking around, I was like, I can't distinguish them. So
oh, that's so exciting.
Like I just couldn't distinguish it. I mean, there were bits that I was like, okay, this looks very visual, this looks like something that wasn't built. But did you say the grass was fake?
Yeah, a lot. Well, so basically the first 35 minutes is what we started filming with a very small amount of money and literally 5 people. That whole first bit, like, it's like there's 2 people in the camera department. Some days our friends came and it would be 4, and we have, very, 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 very small. So there's actually more practical work in that beginning bit because we piled into a car and went to Nova Scotia, and we're in Baltimore and a little bit in Boston, sort of just like going to places that we knew we could get locations. That was the idea.
Yeah.
But then when we had to film the rest of the movie, which had tons more people and tons more sort of logistical challenges, we were beholden to those locations. So, and we also learned a bunch in the first bit where we were like, a lot of the stuff we didn't get to do the way we wanted to do them because we don't have anything. So basically all the last half of the movie is largely in the warehouse, more than half, about 2/3 of the movie. And then the last 35 minutes of the movie, I think, entirely is in that warehouse. So like the backseat of the car, the driveway, all that stuff is just like in one big room.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting because a lot of people assume, visual effects is used to, again, create these giant, massive set pieces and bring the impossible to life and things like that. But what I think the one thing Mare did really well was focus on the characters were still the pivotal driving aspect of the film, and you just had the background around. It didn't try to take you away from that at all, and it all blended in really nicely.
Good.
But
well, that's wonderful to hear. I
mean, nothing was ever taken away. But
it's hysterical to sort of think about now because we've made this behind the scenes documentary, and obviously we're talking about the visual effects a lot. However, it's like it is bizarre to think about because I really think like the first 2 years plus, maybe 3 years, if you would have asked David and I and Zach Schaefer, who's basically who did all the visual effects with me, also the gaffer and producer, if you would have asked us, we would have been like, we're not going to tell anybody this is visual effects, because like we weren't trying to make, we were like, we're just trying to make the movie. We don't want anyone to know that we're just in a room. And obviously there's been like a inflection point where we've changed that idea because we've been honestly excited about what we've done. And I do think it would be disingenuous to not be like, hey guys, like we did this is exciting for a bunch of people. Because if I was like 19, 18 or younger watching like a video about it, which is why I'm making movies, because I consumed all of those videos about people making movies.
Yeah.
it would be important to me, and it would be a bummer if those 30-year-olds decided to not tell anybody that they did all this in a room.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
for sure.
So that's been the hope, and I guess time will tell. I hope it doesn't take away from the movie. I don't think it does.
No, I didn't find it. Like I was trying to, because I had that background knowledge. I was trying to, while I was watching, trying to figure out what I could tell, but
Right.
it's so character driven all the way through that you kind of, it all just blends into one kind of experience, and you kind of forget that that the visual effects are playing such a
Good.
big role in terms of creating the world.
Yeah, they're also it's like music.
Yeah,
Because once you put them in, it's like you can't really take them out. So once you start doing it, it's like, well, it's all gotta look like this.
yeah,
And that was like a long process of the years of chasing it around. There's a Paul Thomas Anderson in the preface to the Magnolia screenplay, which I read a billion times, compares writing to ironing.
yeah.
And he's like, every time you do it, you get a new wrinkle and you gotta go back. That's and there's no more fitting analogy for the years of making the movie.
And I guess for you as well is because you obviously starred in a majority of the movie as well, and you directed it, of course. What was it like being kind of jumping from being behind the camera to then being in front of the camera?
It was sort of miserable. I do not enjoy it, and I don't even enjoy the idea that I put myself in my own movie. It's not something I'm ever going to do again, and
Yeah.
I have tried to minimize it as much as possible because I think there's a bunch of really, really amazing actors in the movie doing a bunch of amazing work, and I just love all of them, and I think it was largely out of necessity, and also, Jordan and I knew each other so well and we're so close, and I knew she was that part.
Yeah.
That it just would have been strange to be like, okay, let's get somebody else in and put another person in the band. It was sort of an impossibility, and we both felt like we knew what those scenes had to be so much. It was sort of understood, once we started. But I also I'm bummed for her sometimes because she didn't really get the full experience of like a scene partner that a director is like, try this, and sort of talking to both, giving different people motivations and everything. It was like, she was acting to the guy who was like, that is or isn't good, which is so, but whatever it was, it definitely created a unique experience, but it only exists because David behind the camera and Jordan in the scenes are excellent. So I was
gonna say you were really good in it, and
oh, thank you.
As you highlighted, the relationship that you guys had felt really, really genuine. Like it was very nice to see that kind of like build up from the start, and it was very genuine. It was very sweet to watch. That
good
the way.
It was. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts of the movie, obviously, but I'm sort of very close to it. So but it's interesting because like the tenor of it or the texture of the sort of that love affair in the film is sort of different, I think, than you'd expect for the younger versions, which we were trying to specifically do. In a strange way, it is a sweeter, almost more neutered version of love. Like normally movies, you get the younger people who are sexualized and hot and heavy, and then you get the older people and they get together and they like hug and they're like, man, we were young and frisky once, which is just so offensive to me. So the hope was, and this was like honestly one of the earliest ideas, the hope was to sort of flip that, is that you have two kids. I wanted the feeling in those scenes between Jordan and I to feel like two orphans.
Yeah. Okay.
Who just were like, we sort of found each other and we're happy here for a moment. And that's a hard thing to pull apart. Whereas the older versions get together and there's lust, and like sort of life and blood pressure.
It kind of felt full circle for them as well, the
Mhm.
way that they went through the story. To me, it kind of felt like, it was a very full cycle relationship, and
Mhm.
it was nice to see it play out in seeing it from the young perspective, and then seeing it from a much older perspective, and having the twist on the different type of relationship they have. I think was, as you point out, was very interesting to do. Not a lot of I don't think a lot of people would have done that. Like you said, it's very kind of stereotypical that older people have more of a just kind of like
Yeah.
a less lackluster relationship. It's
Right.
but yeah, no, I just really liked seeing those two interact with each other.
Yeah. And it's Josh Clark and Christine Kellogg Darren who play the older Moira and Lawrence. Were just, that was like, to me, that experience was, I was like, man, I'm making a real movie when you just watch the two of them act together. Cause I'm like, these are adults.
Yeah,
They're actual actors. They're here in this warehouse with us, these children, and they're really doing it, and they're listening, and they're, you know, so I could watch once they get together at the end. I've seen the movie 10 billion times, but there's a couple parts that don't get old to me, and some of
still
their
good.
stuff
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
yeah.
Obviously, it's very kind of sci-fi heavy. You've got
Mhm.
dystopian world, but also a kind of a safe haven that people are really hoping to get to, and they'll do anything to kind of get there. Um,
Mhm.
how did you go developing, that kind of dystopian world of Anmaere? I don't.
Unmarried. Yeah.
An, I was really worried about mispronouncing it.
No, it's good.
How did you go kind of developing it?
It was a bit of an organic process, and it's very different than the process that I've had lately in writing all the other stuff. The past couple of years of writing all the other stuff. But like the origins of this um, are from me, like in my early 20s, trying to make a film and also trying to reconcile very a very oppositional set of influences.
Okay.
And at the same time, like I sort of, since I was a kid, I've always had like harbored a feeling of being like, man, I want to make a big fantasy world. That's like my thing. I want to do it. But I mean, I think it honestly hadn't evolved in the conscious part of my brain when I was younger. Even when I started making this, there still was a version of this in the writing that was like, well, this is just this place, which is like kind of how like The Crow is, or
Yeah.
sort of things like that, which I love. I mean, they're a bit schlocky, but I love this sort of 90s. The word I'm constantly using is purgatorial, which is like, this is just this place. I love that stuff. I also find it romantic. Like, to me, the setting of like In the Mood for Love is the same. Like, it doesn't quite matter. It's just like this lonely little pocket these people are in. But in terms of creating the world itself from that, that's kind of how it evolved. And our hope was, the world building is not traditional in the
Yeah.
sense of like, if I started like a sci-fi movie, if I started a fantasy world, you'd be like, well, this is where the Lannisters live, and this is where these people live, and this is what we're doing all day. And one of these great functions of fantasy stories is this is how magic works. This is who's in possession of magic, the Force. Here's how the Force works. Like, no, all these sort of things that you're like, okay, here's what you need to go into the ride. The idea from the beginning was honestly to be like, what if you just don't give anybody any of this stuff? And it wasn't trying to be like obscure. It's in fact trying to create something that is, a strangely more living experience.
Yeah,
And like
definitely. Yeah.
one of our unpretentious examples that we used to joke about, we were like, yeah, it's like a Pokemon Snap version of a fantasy movie. You just go through and you're looking around, you're like, what is that over there? What is that over there? You're like, what pictures did I get on my ride? And that was like, that's sort of the hope. And my hope is that those things remove it getting old.
Yeah.
Because then it just becomes a place of feeling. and the feeling of the place hopefully is the same feeling of the characters. So the whole thing is like this, a room where you go to think about these things, you know.
Yeah, when I went into it, it was you know, I think part of me was expecting that sort of like you said, that establishment of the fictional world. And as you go in and you don't get that, it's kind of like, oh, okay, there's so much about this world that I don't know. But as you go through the movie, and you progress, you kind of start to pick up on things, and it helps you along the way. But like it's a very, not a traditional way of doing things, but I think that lends itself to it as well, because it makes it a bit more of a unique experience, because you're not spoon fed the information that you need,
Right.
but it also lends itself because there's so much mystery about it. I mean, I I want to know more about the world. I want to see it in kind of different shapes and forms from different perspectives. And
Yeah.
is that something that's going to happen moving on?
Fingers crossed. I hope so. I mean, I have no desire to ever do anything that isn't in this place. And I don't mean Whithren and like the setting of the Wanting Mare. It's going to be a long time till if I get to keep making stuff, it would be a long time until I come back, which I would like to at some point, because I have, loose ends that are sort of hidden in this movie that it's like in 15 years, I would love to be able to come back and be like, here's actually what this meant. Here's what the title of the movie means. Here's all this other stuff. But you have to explain everything else first. And I have to figure out everything else first, honestly. So the world on Mare is the world, which is my sandbox basically. And Whithren, I think, I have made accommodations for Whithren to be a very hidden, sort of segmented little place that isn't awake to the rest of the world's history and politics and all that sort of stuff. So I don't really have a desire to make another The Wanting Mare. I don't think it would be nearly as interesting, and I wouldn't get anything from it again of being like, this is this sort of textural feeling of a place, and you can really kind of do that well. It's also just a product of how we made it, and I'll never be able to replicate the process of making this movie. So all of the stuff that I'm planning is what you would consider to be like a traditional fantasy, in that it's not medieval, but there are places and people and cultures and commerce and war and all these different things that make a world run, and that's the current plan. So hopefully,
yeah, I'd be super interesting to see kind of what else you can come up with to essentially, like you said, it's your sandbox. And just from kind of like the glimpse that we saw from The Wanting Mare, I definitely need to see more. And like you explained with Game of Thrones, for example, you've got different places, but you've also got different types of people, different different scenarios going on. And yeah, I really hope that works out for you, that you're able to explore those properly, and build your own, I guess, what would be like a mini universe set in one little place.
That's the hope. I mean, I do know at this point, like, the things that I write are most often tied to and sort of incited by the setting. So like I have two very long things at the moment that are effectively done, which should be the next, could very well be the next like 10 plus years of my life if I get to do them. But both of them are tied to two different locations in the world of Anmaere, which involve other cultures and cities and sort of periods of history and war and all that sort of stuff. And but the fun thing is, there's if the sandbox is the same, then the genre gets to change. So like if The Wanting Mare has a genre, it is really a romance. Like it's a sort of very small romance. The other stuff are different genres. So like the one that I'm hoping to make next is a war story. And then, the one after that would be like a very traditional, very large quest, like an adventure. So both of those genres encounter a bunch of different people and places and accents and history, and so we'll see. Hopefully,
Yeah,
I hope.
fingers crossed. I mean, that sounds. Oh, yeah, that sounds really cool.
It's fun because it is very different, because I've been talking to people about it and they're like, cool, so you're gonna make like another surreal thing, and I'm like, no, I really am not. Here's this person, this is their son, and this is the way the government works, and this is the exchange rate. So we'll see.
Oh, brilliant. And I guess it kind of led into one of my final questions is moving outside kind of like your own little sandbox. Do you have any other projects coming up, obviously, that you're allowed to discuss?
At the moment, the next one that we're trying to work on, which would be the war thing, there's been some exciting stuff about it, but hopefully if it comes together, then I'll be able to talk about it probably the next month or two, but it's still very tentative. However, I did get to work on The Green Knight all this past summer, just me personally. It's visual effects, and that obviously I think comes out in July. And then aside
Very
from this,
and
excited. What a film! I just am so excited for people to see it. And David, it's just a real incredible person and artist.
I absolutely love Arthurian legends, so being able to see it in a new light, especially kind of moving away from like traditional ways of doing it, like the sword and the stone, or focusing purely on Arthur. Very excited to see how that plans out, and it looks fully excited.
He just is so wonderful. It's just such a beautiful film. It's really, really, really special. Can't say enough about it, and probably actually can say too much about it. So, and then I have been able to I'm designing some creatures and concepts for Peter Pan and Wendy, which also is like
the Disney one.
Yes, which David Glower is directing. So I've got to stay in the circuits with him for a bit longer, and that's been also insane because like still a little kid that is like imagining playing at Neverland, and then these are toys now and a whole giant movie in a world. So it's just been the past working with David's just been an amazing learning experience, because I kind of have gotten to shadow him a bit and be like, making giant movies, and he is a great person and doing it very well. So
that's fantastic. It sounds like you've got a lot on your plate, or in the pipeline, ready to get going. And some of it sounds absolutely fantastic. That's so great to hear, actually.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been very exciting because when you look at it now, it seems very exciting and amazing, and it's incredible for me, to me. However, we and the people who made the launching Mare. However, there was a long period of time with the launching Mare where we were showing it to people and submitting it to film festivals, and people were like, "What is this?
Yeah,
this is unwatchable and strange. I don't know what you're doing. This isn't serious. This is some sort of strange, you know what I mean? Until everything was done, and also the strange thing that happens in the world of movies and art, where nobody says anything until somebody says something. So everyone's like, I don't know what to think about that. We have no report. And then somebody's like, no, this is a cool thing. Then people are like, yes, this is a cool thing. So until that happened, there was a long period of time where I quite frankly thought the party was over. I'm never going to get to make a movie again. I don't think anyone's going to see this movie. We're going to put it on YouTube, and I'm going to get a desk job. So this feels like I quite honestly feel like we had come to terms with a not great ending to this big adventure of the Haunting Mare, and then gotten very lucky in the past year. So we're very, very grateful, and I'm just so excited for people to see it. I hope it's a strange duck. I hope people enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I think people are going to enjoy it. I think people are going to be very much like I was, kind of left just kind of wanting more. you know, in term from that world, but also like you said, there are some loose ends that kind of need tying up, and so, yeah, you know, they'll want that, I think, and in terms of like, especially being such a visual film, it's just really nice aesthetically to look at as well. So I think, yeah, I think people are going to like it, and I hope they do, because a lot of effort and a lot of hard work has gone to it, and I think it definitely paid off.
Thank you. Oh man, that's so exciting. Thank you.
Sorry. No, I mean, you know, yeah, I mean, like I said, the area of kind of short films and indie films and more art house based films is kind of incredibly new to me. I was always such a, you know, the blockbuster kind of guy, the franchise kind of person, but being able to explore what people can do in littler teams, but also like huge imaginations as well. It's been really refreshing to see, and has kind of changed the way that I look at cinema as well, and how I look at kind of smaller companies or just people on their own making things that they want. So it's been a joy. It really has.
It's a fun time.
Yeah.
People are making some weird stuff, and
We need that
you know,
now.
we certainly, and the technology is. That's why we've been sort of so loud about how we've made the movie, because for me, you know, I'm, in addition to I think I told you this, like in addition to the YouTube stuff, you know, being like, how do we make these visual effects? Like I also, you know, like would go home from school and just be on YouTube for like 7 hours, you know, all night, and like whatever you know, feels like the beginning of YouTube, you know, and like when people are just like uploading old interviews and, you know, so the whole process of making movies is something that has excited me as much as movies have, certainly on giant scales, you know. So we wanted to be open about how we did this, because it is like, you know, if I had tried to make the movie 5 years before I did, it would have been impossible. And if I tried to make the movie again today, I could do it technically in less than half of the time. Like the decisions would still take that long, but the tools by which it could be made are just exponentially, rapidly increasing. Unreal, Wonder, and all these things. And you know, it doesn't just mean, I don't know, whatever we think it means. It also, it's like in this instance is like the grass is fake, you know, which is a strange way to do it. So
Brilliant. That literally rounds off everything I wanted to ask you. You went through
wonderful,
literally everything, and so thank you so much for kind of giving me the opportunity and just kind of discussing the movie and the process of how it was made. And it's just really been great getting to know you a bit more, and I think it's always nice to kind of see the director as well, and understand their thought processes and what it was like for them. And you know, this has been a big undertaking for you, so it's been really nice to just be able to chat about that properly.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a whole, you know, movies become anything you make.
Yeah.
Any jobs you have, they become huge sections of your life. So for me, it certainly is. For all of us, it's been a end of an era. You know, it's interesting to be like, oh God, on February 6th, I'm going to wake up and be like,
that's 5 years of hard work now out there for people to watch.
I still have a feeling where I'm like, well, it's still on my hard drive right here. I could probably change a couple of things. It really is like a thing where I'm like, oh, I could probably tweak this. And so, yeah, can't wait.
Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. And yeah, it's been really nice being able to chat with you about it all. And I really hope that people enjoy it and go out and look for it.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
Yeah, good luck with everything moving on with it, and I hope you're able to expand on the world you're creating. It sounds like you've got a lot of really promising ideas, and I hope you're able to bring them bring them to life in whatever way you see fit.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Well, fingers crossed. Thank you.
Crossed. Well, thank you very much, and yeah, good luck with everything.
Thank you. You too. Have a great one.
You too. Take care.
Great to meet you.
Good to meet you too. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for watching, Super Friends. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button just down below and hit the bell so that you can get notified whenever we release brand new videos. In fact, there's 2 more waiting for you to watch right here below. So what are you waiting for? Why not click play?